Hello viewers, the second round of the Nations Cup is here. Now last week we had a really good 24 lap endurance race around Spa. This time 30 laps around Fuji. It's going to take about 45 minutes, so another very long race. It's a Group 2 race. We're going to be jumping into the Honda NSX. And as before, there is some strategy. Medium and soft tyre required. Let's jump in. Okay, now last time I said I wanted to get my driver rating up so I could get more points. This race is worth 325 points for first, so we're definitely in a higher lobby. That's good news. Okay, qualifying. This is very important because there's going to be a lot of dirty air in this race. Right, first things first, in qualifying, trying to create some space for myself, mainly because you do not want the dirty air in these Group 2 cars around Fuji. Lots of fast sweeping corners here. Trying to create some room for myself. Slipstream is not a factor. So first corner seems okay. Let's progress around the lap. Then we got these the fast sweepers in the middle. Turn 2 here, a little bit wide. Not only on the apex but also on the exit 2. So definitely not an optimal lap. Turned out that I was 4/10 away from pole in 4th place at the time of setting it. And so I knew there was room for improvement. 31.592 was my first lap. And ideally I knew that I had to shave off a couple of tenths there. Catching up though to these guys in front, as you can see. So a bit of a visual distraction. Once again a little bit wide through turn 2. Not ideal. Let's loop it round through this very long right-hander that seems to go on whatever. Down the hill, let's see what our split sector time is going to be. 1/10 slower. That is not good, but we can definitely go quicker here. I felt like my pace wasn't the best in that first lap, and there was definitely room for improvement. And 4th place is okay, but you're never quite safe in a lobby like this. I'm in a higher split than I was in last week's Spa race, the 24 lapper endurance, and so you can never rest too easy, and you've got some good quality players in the lobby. So getting that straighter exit from the final corner up to the line we go. I'm not quite going to get a 3rd lap, frustratingly. It's going to be only a slight improvement. Didn't quite get a 3rd lap. That's quite frustrating. Oh man, you see just how close that is. If I was 1/10 quicker, I could be in 5th. P9 on the grid. We're putting the brake bias to the rear, protect the front tyres. We've got to eke out these stints as best we can. All right, let's jump in. Okay, a lengthy 30 lap race is ahead of us. Group 2 cars around Fuji. Plenty of strategy involved, lots of tyre saving as well. Let's jump in and hope for a nice clean start into the first corner. Just going to go into the space around the outside of the Frenchman. Not really to try to overtake, but more to prevent myself from getting hit. But it wasn't going to be long before I was going to get hit. As we come through turn 2, I receive this hit from behind and I only have one word to say. Wow. So you can see the pure exasperation upon my face as we get hit back into the Shadow Realm and P16 out of 16. This is going to be a long race. There's no doubt about that. A couple of cars getting tangled up with each other here. So we're going to go through back to 14th at least. Another car wide on the left, turning left on a right-hander. And boom, they're in the wall. So 13th place, not ideal at all, losing a handful of positions, 4 positions on the first lap. Looking down for this move at turn 1. The Spaniard went quite wide, so I thought let's try it up the inside. It's not quite going to work, and we're going to have to settle in behind. And this is where you can see the dirty air of the cars in front. It's really hard to follow in these Group 2 cars around this type of corner, these fast sweeping corners. Very difficult to really get close enough to the car in front to challenge. And you can see that's going to be quite a big factor at this moment because we've got 4 cars battling very directly in front and try and pick up the pieces if possible, almost losing control on the exit. As we head up through the final sector, end of lap number 2, Spaniard and the Brit in front going toe to toe, and the Spaniard goes quite wide, so I'm going to just tip it up the inside and say hello to P12. And a tidy little move. There's definitely overtaking opportunities through this final sector here at Fuji. And then of course you have this extremely lengthy straight at this circuit. Now, as we whip it forward through this aforementioned very lengthy straight, the guy behind back in the tow, and this is where incident number 2 is going to occur, as I'm kind of in no man's land here on the outside, get run wide onto the curb, nice little 360, and that is extremely frustrating, as you can see by the pure joy upon my face. We are now going to have to fight back again. So this race just really was not going to plan at all, but given the length of the race, I always knew there was a chance. Plus, it's always good practice. You should always just continue, I guess, and just learn the ins and outs of this race. I managed to go past this guy around the outside. So I was making my way back through the pack and just trying to do my best to recover to whatever position I could to see ultimately what my race pace could be like. A little bit further into this race, lap number 8 now, just beginning to catch up with this battle in front, but just pushing a bit too hard into the final corner and losing another couple of seconds here and another couple of positions. So I would say those 3 incidents that have happened in this race have probably cost me a good 12 or so seconds in this race, maybe about 10 minimum. So that's been very costly so far. I could easily be well inside the top 10 if not for those. But yeah, that is racing. Those are the things that happen. And I suppose in the next race we'll have to make sure they don't happen again. End of lap number 9 now. A couple of cars going into the pit lane. Multiple strategies on offer here. You can do the 2-stop. You can do a 1-stop. I'm going to try and do the 2-stop. Sorry, the 1-stop I'm doing. At the end of lap 16, a couple of cars coming in here. So the medium tyre runners began to come in to the pit lane at the end of lap 16 or 17. And as a result of all these pit stops, I started moving up the order, you can see there, to P6 by this point. So I was slowly making my way back through the field, so this wasn't too bad. I would still have to make my pit stop. And the key issue at this moment would be my front left tyre, which is the tyre that really takes the brunt around this Fuji track. A couple more cars in front going into the pit lane, as you can see, or one of them is actually. And that's going to move me up into P4. And on this lap, I decided, okay, that's enough. 18 laps on the medium. We can now go over to the soft tyre and try to eke those out until the end of the race, only doing 1 stop. So this race was really much about preserving the tyres, making them last, try to drive as fast and consistent and safely as possible without overworking the car and the tyres. So I rejoin in 11th place with 11 laps left to go, and a couple of laps later, lap 21 now, just beginning to catch up with Willett's Bros here, and I knew that I had a chance here. So it was pretty good that I started P9, dropped so many positions, but I'm back in a fight here for P6. Up the inside goes this Frenchman, who I thought was on a better strategy. So I thought, I'm not going to fight it too much. I don't want to be too stupid and lose too much time. But it didn't take too long for this battle to get really quite intense. As you can see here, 4 cars battling for 1 position. P6 beginning just to edge away as we fight. But it only took 1 more lap for this really to get a lot worse for the guys there in 7th and 8th. Lots of defending going on at weird sorts of angles. And the German gets run wide. Then this guy turns left on the right and says hello to the grass. And I'm up into P8. So that's a good recovery. I'm in a higher position than what I was when I started the race in P9. And on the final lap, lap 30 out of 30, we are now 46 minutes into this race. And I have a chance, an outside chance, of getting P7. This guy was dropping quite quickly and was obviously not on the best quality tyres. And so I had a faint chance now of gaining a further position. So let's see if we can do it. Through the final sector of Fuji, as we mentioned, there's definitely overtaking opportunities. Into this left, can we nip underneath? He's going to cover it off somewhat. Don't really have the space. But into the final turn, there's definitely opportunities here. And I'm going to spring a surprise here and try and really just narrow off this corner. Completely go for it. I have to make sure I don't run him wide. He's got the better traction on the wider line. He's going to get back into 7th place, but it's going to be a drag race to the line. Am I going to finish 7th or am I going to finish 8th? Let's take a look. P8 after all that. You know what, I think after all of the incidents at the beginning, that wasn't such a bad result. So even though there was lots of carnage at the start, I still enjoyed that. Once it settled down, I think there was a lot more respect, but in those opening laps, it was a bit too chaotic. So for that, I get 230 points. I need more than that. I want to get closer to 300, I think. Okay, guys, let's jump into the second slot. I think it's quite clear what we need to do. Qualify better and not crash about 5 times in the race. This is the bit that matters. Got to sort this out. Got to get a low 31 minimum, I think. Yeah, qualifying was so important. I think in the first race, that's really where my problem stemmed from. Qualifying in the middle of the pack, and in the middle of the pack is just always going to be much more aggressive. You stand so much higher a chance of being involved in an accident, and therefore qualifying at the front in the fresh air with a lot more space, that can really turn your fortunes in your favour. And so I really targeted this qualifying session as the most important aspect of how to improve my overall result. And so qualifying here, this is my first lap, giving myself a bit more space. I think in the first qualifying session I didn't leave enough space on the side, just began to catch up with some cars in front, just began to distract me slightly, and I didn't really put in the laps that I know I could have done. And so a bit of a bigger gap here on this occasion. So let's see as we head down the hill towards the end of the second split here. No one's set a time yet, so we're not actually going to get a reference. 48.4, we don't know if that's good or not. We will see at the end of the lap. Through the final sector then, very technical couple of corners here, and it's never been my favourite part of the track, but it's one that I'm improving at the more that I do it. And so, a bit wide on the exit there. Going wide, back up a gear. This exit quite crucial, got to get on the power as early as you dare without losing control of the car, of course. And then through the final corner, so many interpretations possible through that corner. Make sure you extend the exit to really get the car to accelerate in a straight line. And coming up to the line, let's take a look at what this lap time is going to be. It's going to be well, 1/10 away from pole position. It's a 1:31.3, so that's already 2 tenths quicker than I managed in the previous race. Remember, I did a 31.5. So we've already improved, but I know that I can go even quicker here. And on this second lap, we're going to have the references, so we know if we're going faster or slower. And there we go, slightly faster. We want to be seeing blue, better yet, purple on the split sectors. Obviously purple, meaning you have gone quicker than the pole position time. But let's take a look. With this left, it's really easy to overcook that one on the entrance. Got to get on the power as early as possible on the exit. Leads out onto a medium length straight coming down the hill here. It's not very straight at all, but it's classified as a straight, I guess. Braking just under the gantry on the shadow. 1/10 quicker through the second split. This is a good lap, and we just have to hold our nerve through this final sector, and we have improved our lap and gone onto pole position. But of course, everyone else is running, everyone else is on good laps as well, so you never quite know for sure. All you can do is stick to your guns, complete your own lap the best you can, and not worry too much about what everyone else is doing. And so through the final corner, this has been a very solid sector, quite happy with it. And as we exit the final corner, let's take a look at what it's going to be. Is it going to be an improvement? That felt good. Come on, this has got to be a 30, surely. Come on, 31.1. One more lap. So there's a really solid improvement on this third lap. Luckily, I was able to get a third lap in this time. And I was slightly slower through the second split. But again, I knew I could improve for this final sector. So I kept going. And just tried to carry a bit more speed. Especially on the exit here. This exit was really crucial. Up to second, just trying to get on that power as early as possible. Just really dealing with the oversteer moment that you inevitably have as a result. Through the final corner, again on the power as early as possible in third gear for stability. Up to the line we go. What is it going to be? It's going to be an improvement, and a lap I was really happy with. Yes! Slightly quicker on that final lap. I rarely get pole positions. I'm happy with that. We are going to put on the mediums. I think we would do the same strategy as the last time. I think that was the right strategy. Oof, right, here we go, guys. This is it. Let's go. All right, 3, 2, 1, start. Okay, again, 30 laps ahead of us. Trying to pull off the same strategy. Let's try and settle into this race and give it a jolly good go. Now, into turn 1, just try not to overcook it on that first lap. Really easy to do because you're going in there at a different speed than normal. Now, the car behind, Stefanzi, the Frenchman, in a different car, which is quite interesting. Most people opting for the Honda NSX, and he was in the Lexus, which was quite a different choice. Not many people were really going for that car. And so it offered something different, a different challenge. And I wasn't sure exactly where that car was strong or where it was weak around this circuit. And the first thing I was trying to do here was really just break the toe of the guy behind. And I was noticing already that he's got a penalty for starters, but also he was quite quick out of turn 1, had really good traction. And my main concern is really just working out who is on what tyre. I'm of course on the medium, the weaker of the two, and he may well be on the soft. And if he is, then, you know, if he comes flying through, then that's not really too much of an issue. We should hopefully try to catch back up at the end of the race. And so, as we kind of touched upon earlier in the qualifying, these longer races are definitely races where you can just settle into your own rhythm and just go at your own rate, and eventually at the end, you know, your strategy hopefully will come together, and you don't really have to think too much about the others. To some extent you do, but here at the front, in control, just trying to set nice consistent laps and not be too overzealous on the power, not make any mistakes or get any penalties. And on the exit of lap number 3, end of the lap, Stefanzi managed to catch back up here, as you can see, in the slipstream. I was not going to fight this one. I felt like I just did not want to lose time to the others. If he was on the soft tyre, he was going to come through at some point anyway. And so to start defending would lose me time against pretty much everyone else on the track. So I was going to play the long game here, let him go, and we would eventually catch back up. Now, I forgot, the one mistake I did make is I forgot to put my brake bias to the rear the first 5 laps of this race, and we'll see if that does cost me. The gap behind, 1.6 seconds. So this German behind was like quite ominously close, and it's just one of those gaps where you're never quite fully comfortable, especially if he gains maybe half a second or a bit more. He's in the slipstream. So after 7 laps, you see they're fairly consistent. The gap went up to about 1.9, and Tidgney there going into the pit lane on medium tyres. And so there was lots of distractions. I had the car in front pulling away from me. I had the guy behind ominously close, keeping a good gap. I had other cars going to the pit lane on different strategies. So it was really easy to get distracted. I kept my cool. You see the gap now, 5 seconds to the leader, just under 5 to the guy behind. Stefanzi actually going into the pit lane at the end of lap 12, and indeed was on the soft tyre. So that was quite good to see that he was on the soft tyre and would presumably now be going onto the medium, probably for the rest of the race, doing the one-stop strategy. So after retaking the lead, lap 17 now, and you can see the front left tyre was really beginning to die of death. In the first race, I managed to do 18 laps on the medium tyre, but that's looking incredibly unlikely now on this race, mainly I would say because of not changing the brake bias, plus perhaps driving the car a little bit too hard and carrying the brakes into the corners a couple of times, and that really does murder the front tyres. And so at the end of this lap, I had to make a very bold decision. You know, do I want to do one more lap? But ultimately it was quite an easy call because my front left was completely dead. And so I had no choice but to pull over to the right, bring the car in, and get the mediums changed over to the softs, albeit 1 lap sooner than I would have liked. I wanted to do 18 laps, but the tyres were just really going off there, so I had to come in there. Right, let's go. Right, I need to be super smooth here, really smooth. Make these tyres last. Yeah, so we have at least 12 laps remaining. So on the soft tyre, it seems comfortable now when you've got all of the grip in the world, especially as I've just come off of very worn mediums and I'm now on brand new softs, there is so much more grip, and it feels so tempting to push and just really go for it, but you have to pace yourself and just make sure your tyres don't die by the end of the race. I don't want to have to do another pit stop. That's going to cost me, I don't know, 17 or 18 seconds or something, quite a lot of time. And so I have to just make sure that I pace myself nicely, make the car last, don't do anything too stupid. There's still a good 20 minutes or so left in this race, so lots of things can happen, and you really do have to teach yourself patience, I think, in these slightly longer races. But that is the really cool element of this race, and like you would have seen in the previous video on the endurance race at Spa, just the longevity of the race means you have to just be a bit more patient. So a couple of cars pulling into the pit lane here. Luckily, that was really good timing, because I was just getting into their slipstream. They would have been on worn tyres, and so I'm not going to lose any time from them. That was really, really good, because if I started to catch up with them, I would have been in the slipstream, I would have been in the dirty air. I probably would have got stuck behind for a lap, maybe 2 laps, and that could have cost me a couple of seconds. So at this point, the gap to the guy behind, the German, 7 seconds now. So I did a 1 lap undercut on him, and that gave me about 2 seconds. And 8.5 seconds the gap to the guy in front. At this point, 7.6. But look at this, guys. As we come through this section of the circuit, I noticed that his car was clearly deficient around these couple of corners here. So through this right-hander, I was gaining about half a second alone in one corner. And then through this left-hander, gaining a bit more. So I've just gained just over a second in 2 corners. I just gained like half a second on the guy in front through those last 2 corners. This is going to be a couple of laps and I'll be with him. There we go, as my past self repeats. So it didn't take too long for me to catch, with good consistency in the mid-31s for the most part. This is lap 25, and the gap eventually came down to 1.8, and you can see here, clear visual confirmation I'm catching up. And the gap to the guy behind was actually coming down as well, so I had that to worry about. But my main focus right now was just bringing this gap down to the guy in front, and trying to strike early whilst my tyres are still in good shape. So he's on the medium tyre. His car is clearly deficient through that corner. He's driving the Lexus, and so that car has different capabilities. I did notice it has good traction. It's pretty good out of the corners. I think in terms of pure downforce through these fast corners, it definitely did not have the grip and the performance of this Honda NSX. You can see it here, as I'm able just to carry much more speed and pull right up to the back of him now. This is lap 26 of 30, and we are approaching the end. This is really the part that matters now. The gap coming down to the guy behind, less than 4 seconds. It was 7 at one point, and so I was very worried that if I got struck into a big battle here with Stefanzi for too long, even just 2 laps, that the guy in third could quite quickly catch up. And it seems as though the guy behind is on better tyres, has 1 lap fresher tyres, and that seems to be making a difference, as every lap just gaining maybe half a second, or if not a bit more than that. So I was a little bit worried that this could go, you know, I could win, but also I could easily drop to third if it doesn't go to plan. Big moment from Stefanzi on the exit of the final corner, onto the main straight, very long straight, into the slipstream now. In Group 2 cars, the slipstream isn't too strong, but I'm definitely in it now. Is he going to go defensive? Yes, he is, all the way to the pit wall on the right-hand side. I'm going to go back to the left. I'm in the wrong position, really. I don't really want to be on the outside. You saw in the first race, I got run wide and spun around. But here, space is afforded, and we're going to go clean around the outside and take the lead of the race on lap 27 out of 30. And so eventually, after many, many laps of consistent driving and being patient and waiting for my strategy to come home, it finally has paid dividends, and I'm back in the lead of the race. So he overtook me 3 laps into the race, and I've overtaken him back 3 laps to the end of the race. Our strategies very much mirrored each other, and our pace was actually very well matched. And with only 1 lap left to go, I had a few worries about my tyres. Oh my god, guys, 1 more lap. I've got enough fuel. It's just that front left tyre. It is dying of death. Got 3.5 seconds gap though. Just need to bring it home now. Nothing silly. But unfortunately, I did something very silly. Coming through this left-hander, final lap. This is where my race unraveled. As we come through here, well, nothing happened. I'm tricking you. As we actually come to the final corner of the final lap, after much stress and much... Yes! Come on, guys. P1. Get in there, Lewis. Miracles do happen, mate. Oh. Yes. Come on. Come on. What a race. That was perfect. Oh my god, I'm sweating. Gotta say to Stefanzi there, that was a really good race. Really, really amazing battle. 46 minutes and we were separated by just a couple of seconds. So that for me is 320 points. I'm very happy with that. I don't often get above 300, so I'll take it. Still first in Kent, 15th in the UK now, 60th in Europe, Middle East and Africa. So at this point it's only counting one score, so your best score. 15th in the UK, pretty happy with that. Above 300, which was my aim for this round. As for the next round, that is in the Super Formula car, the new one at Deep Forest this Saturday. But thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Goodbye.